Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're very excited to dive into the latest Top Employers Institute report, which is all about skills. It's entitled Building a Skills First Workforce, and is a really powerful look at how organisations can put skills at the very centre of their talent strategy and essentially win in the marketplace. So before we get started, here's a quick bit on the format of today's session. It's going to be a Q&A session, but we're going to tee up the Q&A first. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce our very special guest who'll be joining us and sharing her own experience with her team within her business. Then secondly, I'll dive in and unpack some of the research highlights between our work at the Top Employers Institute. And then we'll move into a Q&A session as well. So do feel free to drop your questions into the comments at any time. I'm conscious that things move on, something may go out of mind. Drop the question in, we'll log all of that and we will come back to it in the Q&A session as well. Now also, there is a full research report that goes behind building a skills first workforce that will be shared at the end via a QR code as well. So you'll have an opportunity to download that and see that report before anybody else does. So most importantly, it is my pleasure to introduce our external speaker today, a certified top employer, in fact, a certified top employer of 15 years, which is Vanessa Gonasilan from Accenture. And Vanessa is, as you can see on the screen, HR Director for Accenture's businesses in Africa. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you, Adrian. It's so nice to be here today.
Brilliant. Now, we've had quite a long relationship, a long history of partnering together with Accenture. When you think about that partnership, Vanessa, what really stands out to you?
So, Adrian, as you've mentioned, that relationship does span over 13 years, close to 15 years, actually. And hopefully that earns us a little bit of bragging rights, Adrian. So we are very, very proud of the fact that we've been ranked number one 2 times already, and we have consistently been recognized as the industry leader, specifically in the professional services category, and we've consistently achieved top 10 over those years. Now, the reason why our partnership is so important is because this recognition really indicates that Accenture is really an employer of choice in South Africa, especially in the category of professional services. The certification also really implies third-party validation for us, especially around our people practices. It helps with employer branding, attraction, retention, everything around the credibility with our clients as well as our partners and our people here at Accenture. And we take a lot of pride, specifically my HR team here in South Africa, and I know that they are here on the call today. We take pride in the investment that we have done for our people, especially around skilling, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, but also things like work-life integration, diversity, adapting to the ever-changing paradigms around flexible workforce, and maintaining very, very strong triple BEE rating. So this partnership, Adrian, is really, really key for us, and we hope to continue this partnership for many, many years down the road.
That is good to hear, Vanessa. I know it's such a competitive recruitment market there in the space that you sit in as well. So thanks very much for sharing that. Now, one thing Accenture's been doing very successfully, of course, is being really quite far down the journey on becoming a skills-driven organisation. And therefore, we thought when we were thinking about clients that working with you on this piece would be just the most perfect fit. So I'm going to hand over to you now to unpack Accenture's journey when it comes to becoming skills first. So I will disappear for a moment and I will come back afterwards, but look forward to hearing this.
Great. Adrian, thank you so much. But maybe before I start and before I talk about shifting into the skills-based organization, for many of you that are on the call today that have not heard of Accenture before, I hope not. But Accenture at a glance is a global professional services company. We are driving reinvention for our clients across industries, geographies, and technologies. We are about $70 billion company worldwide. And in terms of our headcount across the world globally, it's around 780,000. So this certainly reflects our scale as well as diversity. Now, in terms of reinvention that I spoke about, we have really diversified around geographic markets, including industry, as well as our services, which include strategy, technology, operations, as well as the client groups, specifically in the financial services space, the resources space, the health and public services space, and sustainability as well is one of the core pillars that we work on. So that is Accenture at a glance, and I am now going to take you on a journey in terms of shifting to a skills-based organization, and really what that means and what goes behind that. So if I can ask you to quickly go into the next slide, and what I'm going to be talking about today is a few things. So we're going to talk about the overall journey to the skills-based organization. I'm going to try and double click around designing the framework and what that meant. I will talk about the cultural and behavioral impact that we have encountered with our business as well. And very importantly, the lessons learned and best practices that we've learned across this journey. And then hopefully I'm going to talk about the future outlook of what this means for us. So as we start, thank you, Eve. I'm going to talk about what does skills mean at the heart of reinvention. Now, skills at the heart of reinvention, it's basically the mindset of driving everything that we do at Accenture. Now, when it comes to industries, organizations that really put skills at the center is the ones that are ready for the future. Now, what do I really mean by that? I mean, the world of work is very, very different to what we are used to. It is really changing more than ever before. You will hear things like AI, you would hear things like digital transformation or Gen AI. All of this are really shaping and reshaping industries and the way clients expect things from us today. Now, with the half-life of skills that continues to shrink, traditional roles-based organizations cannot keep up with that change that I'm talking about. So why did we do this at Accenture? It meant that we needed to go into an industry shift. Now, industry shift is looking at moving towards a skills-based organization, and that really means agility. When I talk about agility, I'm talking about ways in which to redeploy talent and redeploying talent in a fast, quick pace to make sure that we are doing it with specialization and specialization at scale, that are future-ready models. That is very, very important. So it combines the human expertise with AI and digital assets. Now, the next thing that we did was, with this ever-changing dynamics, we asked ourselves is, how will Accenture respond to this ever-changing dynamics? So here at Accenture, we're pivoting talent to growth industries and geographies, and we were building skills at the intersection of industry, technology, and functions. Now, that meant that we were really reshaping our talent pyramid. You will hear a lot of modern organizations talking about a talent pyramid with modern leadership structures that is AI-powered practitioners to supercharge delivery. And that's what we were doing at Accenture. So the overall goal is, a lot of people said, but why are you doing this? Why are you moving away? And why are you, making sure that your people were relevant for the future? We did this, and our goal was very clear. Our goal was to build a skills-based organization that was agile, it was innovative, and future-ready, which meant that it empowers people with career mobility, reskilling opportunities, and capabilities to deliver greater value for our clients. I did say that we are about 780,000 people. We operate in many, many different countries. So we wanted the opportunity for our people to really expand on that and look for opportunities not only in South Africa, but across the globe. So if you can quickly move to the next slide, Eve, I'm going to quickly talk about the overall shift. Let me just see where you are. Sorry, the next slide, Eve, just overall the journey. One more. So this fancy slide talks about the journey that we embarked on. So when we began this journey at Accenture, like many organizations, we really had a traditional based or role-based talent. And the roles that I'm talking about were really tied down to job titles. It was tied down to employees who often found it very, very hard to move across functions, even when they had the right capabilities, when they felt that they had the right skills, or we knew that this model wouldn't be ready for the future. So we then said, what were the strategic drivers? And we looked at three very, very fundamental things. The first thing is the pace of digital transformation was really creating demand for new skills almost overnight. You must remember that we were a consulting based organization and we have many projects that we need to staff our people with. And that meant having the most relevant skills readily available. So, the second thing that we looked at is the global competition for talent. We often talk about the war for talent in South Africa, but it wasn't only the war for talent in South Africa, but also the war for talent globally. We saw that technologies and skills, especially around AI, cloud, cybersecurity, was becoming such a trend in the market that we couldn't keep up. So we needed to become more agile and to match the right skills with the right opportunities, regardless of the organizational silos. So we set ourselves some milestones. So you can see this nice journey along the line. In order for us to do this in traditional Accenture format, we set ourselves some goals. We know that we're a high performance organization. So the first step was securing executive alignment. And often people say, how do we get this right? This is not an HR initiative. It is a business priority. And as soon as we understand that this is a business priority, you are going to get the buy in from both the business, from your people, and from HR, who will also help and support to execute this. So we then developed a very unified skills taxonomy that spoke a very common language across regions, functions, as well as roles as well. So next, we then said, what do we then need to do? We then invested in technology. Now, we are very lucky at Accenture because we're a technology driven organization. It gives us the visibility. So, having the technology gives us the visibility to have skills readily available, to understand what are the skills do we have already, what are the skills that we need to build, and more importantly, what are the gaps that we need to close on. So, finally, we embarked on a very, very simple journey where we looked at embedding skills in every stage of the talent lifecycle. And when I say every stage, I'm talking about from hiring right to onboarding to learning and performance management. And if you don't have those milestones, having executive support from the business, it is very, very hard to execute. We then asked ourselves, lastly, what do we want to achieve? At the end of the day, I spoke about this is not an HR initiative. At the end of the day, we wanted to know what is the impact for the business? What is the impact for the bottom line? So today, we've seen measurable, faster, and internal mobility. We've seen reduced time to skill, to upskill, to place people on these fabulous projects that I spoke about, to give them meaningful work. And this shift didn't happen overnight, but it has fundamentally changed the way we think about talent. So that is, in a nutshell, the overall journey that we embarked on. Thank you, Eve. If I can ask you to go on to the next slide, is we identified this journey, but we then need to look at designing a skills-based organization. Now, designing a skills-based organization wasn't an easy task. I spoke about having the collaboration, having the support, having the executive sponsorship. But what did we needed to do? Once we had the executive buy-in and a very, very clear vision, the next step was for us to design a framework that would be able to have the skills-based organization in a very real and tangible and scalable way. So we started creating a unified tax or a skills taxonomy. I'm sure that this term is going to be very common going forward. But basically, what does that mean? What do I mean when I say skills taxonomy? This is becoming the backbone of our approach in terms of designing the skills-based organization. Every skill needed a very clear definition, a proficiency model that has an alignment across geographies as well as the business, as well as different categories, core businesses, technical expertise, leadership capabilities, emerging new skills, so we could prioritize investment based on the business need. Now, I'm sure we have a lot of people from the business that are here on the call today, so I know this resonates very well with you. In order for us to be business ready, that goes hand in hand with the skills that we need to make this happen. So, I mentioned technology was very, very critical for us. So, what did we do with that technology? We integrated AI powered tools to continuously assess the skills from employee profiles, project histories, and learning completions. Now, the systems connect seamlessly with our HR platforms. When I say that, I'm talking about the way in which we retain our people, the way in which we manage our people when it comes to performance, the way in which we retain our people. So, this for us is when I say it's the backbone of what we are doing in every aspect of talent, that is exactly what I mean. So, finally, we embarked, or not really embarked, but we embedded the skills into every part of the talent life cycle. I spoke about recruitment. I spoke about onboarding. So that for us was very, very important. And then, nothing matters if we do not have a governance framework. So you will see that to keep this framework really relevant, we needed to make sure that we have established governance. Now, with HR, we looked at the relevant stakeholders, with HR, the business leaders, the talent teams collaborating to update this taxonomy that I was talking about. And this ensured that our model stays current and business aligned. So I spoke about very, very important methodologies. I spoke about making sure that we have the right support. I spoke about governance. I spoke about using technology to make sure that we are tracking this effectively, all of which made this very, very successful for us at Accenture. So it's not just a process that we've applied. It's a process that we are applying into all the frameworks that is helping us make sure that we are making the right talent decisions daily. Eve, thank you. Can you go to the next slide for me? Now, I know this is going to resonate with a lot of people. When it comes to embarking on such a massive drive, we talk about the cultural impact and we talk about behaviors. And behaviors for me is very, very important. And when we talk about behavioral change, there is a change management process that needs to happen. There is a mindset change that needs to happen. And one of the most profound aspects of this transformation wasn't just about the technology or the process change, it was around a cultural shift across our organization. And that for me is very important. In doing so, we needed leadership alignment. We needed our leaders to move away from the rigid role based thinking and embrace a very new skills first mindset. Now, what does this really mean? This meant that when making talent decisions based on capabilities rather than titles, executive sponsorship was crucial. So, my encouragement to many people on the call today is if you want to embark on a skills based organization, make sure that your leaders are on board, that they are the examples that you want to set going forward to make this happen. So, when leaders are championed with this shift, it's signaling to our employees that this is a strategic priority and not just another HR initiative. So, if I quickly look at the employee experience, and I'm almost at a close in terms of what I want to say, what does this mean for our people? What does this mean for our employees? For our employees, this transition really opened doors for many of our people. It opened doors for career opportunities. Suddenly, career paths become more transparent. People could see the skills they had, the skills they needed to grow, and the opportunities that were available to them internally as well as externally. So sometimes in functions, they never considered this before. And this really boosted the mobility and unlocked talent potential that we've never had or we've never seen before. So I briefly mentioned around the change management. So, of course, change doesn't happen automatically. We implemented a very, very structured communication plan to explain why this shift was important. And when you talk about behaviors and when you talk about a cultural shift, the why becomes very important. We also invested in learning programs to help people reskill and adapt to ensure that no one is left behind in this journey. So, the business outcome, as the last pillar on that slide, um, it speaks for themselves or it speaks for itself. Faster response to new market opportunities, improved employee engagement, and stronger retention is ultimately what we were wanting to achieve from this. And stronger retention where people saw investment in their own growth. When we talk about retention in many organizations, it's not often about remuneration or money. It is about making sure that people have meaningful careers and that the organization that they are working for really takes a significant investment around making sure that their people are trained and developed so that they are relevant for the future. So if I quickly talk about this cultural impact, this for me is very, very important. And if you can quickly look at the last slide around lessons learned, there were many lessons learned. And if there's one thing we've learned on this journey is to, in terms of becoming a skills based organization, is that transformation never follows a straight line. It is not easy as it sounds, guys. So looking back, there's definitely things that we need to do differently. We could have done faster if we had the chance, obviously. So, first and foremost, the business problem that matters the most needs to be the forefront and needs to be your priority. Use the opportunity to define some of the use cases that make sense for you as a business. Do not reinvent the wheel. We learned the value of leveraging existing frameworks, tools, and experiences. We're thankful that we're a global organization. So we leveraged a lot of the frameworks that was already available to us and made it even better. Thirdly, I would say get your foundation in a place quickly and don't wait for perfection. If anyone knows my team or knows how we work, we always say progression before perfection. So it's not going to be the best. The single source of truth for skills data is key, and remember that. And always remember that when you design something, the pace of which technology changes means that your model must be flexible to allow for that change to happen. So, if we had to do it all over again, we would focus on speed, we would focus on agility, and we would make sure that the culture change is right, always rightly done right at the onset of this program, and we'd make sure that our approach could scale and evolve with the business. So on that note, Eve, I'm going to go to the last slide and maybe talk a little bit about the future outlook. So this fancy slide I did the other day. As we look ahead, and again, if many organizations want to go on this journey, happy to advise, but the journey does not stop here. As you can see, there's so much work to be done. And moving to a skills based organization, as I said, is not a one time project, it's an ongoing transformation. The skills taxonomy that I spoke about was, we built was dynamic. New technologies like AI, sustainability, and digital ethics will keep on emerging. I often say skills is the new currency. We need to continuously refresh our skills framework to stay ahead and align to the talent strategies with evolving business priorities. There's a lot of talk around AI and analytics that will certainly be, and if not, is already the game changer. So imagine predictive insights that flag upcoming skills gaps or recommend reskilling pathways tailored to each employee. So combined with a culture that celebrates continuous learning for us at Accenture, this will unlock the full potential of our workforce and has been successful already. So finally, maybe as I close, Eve and Adrian, there's no organization that can do this alone. For us at Accenture and for our learning and development team and the rest of our HR team, we know that in order for this to be successful, collaboration with learning providers, external, talent networks will help to ensure that we always have access to the skills that, that require future demands. So as I close here, Eve, Adrian, thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to share what Accenture has done to take us through the journey of becoming a skills-based organization. Thank you.
That's fantastic, Vanessa. Thank you very much. It's also worth remembering, I think, Accenture is, I think, the 6th largest employer in the world. So 780,000 individuals around the world. And when you talk to a change story like this, it is worth remembering that, because doing change to a big organization where us as humans, we don't necessarily like change, but it's such a powerful example of how you put that in place and then seeing the impact. And also loving the ambition at the end. You're not done yet. This is an ongoing journey about what comes next. There's an absolute ton in there as well that's really reflected in our own findings, which is a good thing as well. And I promise we didn't check on this beforehand, but really nice to see how that came together. So thank you again. Thank you for your openness in sharing that with the broader HR community as well, Vanessa. Now, we will come back. Keep your questions in mind. I can see there's questions coming in, which is wonderful. We'll come back to those in a moment. We're just going to share a couple of slides from our own research then into skills in general, as I mentioned. And when sharing any kind of research, it's great to start with a big number. I think we can all agree 6.5 trillion is definitely a big number. And what it is, it's a World Bank estimate for the economic amount that we could add to the world if we filled the skills gap that exists over the next 7 years. And just for context, if you think about global GDP, that would actually mean that this skills gap would sit 3rd in the world. So the US is the largest economy, China next. We then have skills gap at 6.5 trillion. And then we'd have Germany thereafter. So Germany's economy is about 4.7 trillion. So there's 6.5 trillion worth of opportunity over the next 7 years if we as HR leaders and other business leaders can get on this skills gap and resource it. And it's important that because there's a lot of fear around what's going on with skills, with AI, with job role changing right now, but helpful to perhaps remind ourselves and employees in our organization that there is a huge opportunity ahead in regards to changing skills in the workforce and in the workplace. So in a moment, we're going to go into our own findings. We've got 3 highlights for you, and then we're going to bring Vanessa back in. Just if you're new to Top Employers Institute, it's good to know where our data comes from. We're a HR certification business. That certification comes from deep research into the world of work, into HR, how it works and how it works well for large organizations like Accenture around the world. There's around 2,400 organizations that we certify, and those organizations are spread over 125 different countries. So just wanted to mention that that's the data inputs that goes into our research team. And what they're really fascinated by is what are high performing organizations doing more of that lower performing organizations are not doing. I mean, you'll see some of that come to life in the research. So Eve, into the next slide there. The first one here is all about how taking a skills first approach really does drive outcomes that we care about as business leaders, as HR leaders. So things like you see on the slide here, internal promotion rates, looking at DEI, but overall business growth. And when we say business growth, we're talking about profitability, revenue growth, market share acquisition, things that our boards care about as well. And we can link this back to what higher performing organizations are doing who are taking a skills first approach. And there's a number of questions in the survey about skills, which is how this data comes to life. Now, I would say over the last 50 years or so, the world of work has changed enormously. Not quite in my lifetime, but if I think about my mother, she was an air hostess. And when she got married, that was the end of her job. That was in her contract. So her future job prospects had nothing to do with skills whatsoever. They were really kind of upset by choosing to get married 50 years ago. If I go back 20 years in my career, there was a big shift in the world of graduate recruitment, and employers, big employers, think about the big consulting firms who are always looking for the very best talent. There was a big shift looking for that talent more broadly So not just the same universities, the same college educated kids, looking more broadly to bring them in as well. So there was a broadening of what we were looking for. And this feels like another shift right now where, as Vanessa said, we're moving away from just the job description to more thinking about what skills have individuals got, what's their potential for skill building as well, and how will that help the organization. The second bit you see on the slide is looking at how organizations like Accenture are getting on with this journey. And you see IT technology second on the list, there's consumer goods and services first on the list. But there are certain organizations, because of the type of businesses that they're in, that have had to jump on to this skills-based approach earlier than others. I think about technology in particular, a little bit our theme for today, but if you think about how tech companies resource client projects, a virtual team will come together with a set of skills, both technical, soft skills as well, and capabilities. They'll come together in one constellation for a client project, and then that project will finish, and then they'll disappear and they'll move on to other projects next. And organizations in the tech sector needed to keep track of this. And so that's why they were a little bit ahead of the curve. So setting up those kind of skills taxonomies, perhaps a little bit earlier than other organizations there as well. Now we're going to move on to transparency next. And I mentioned at the top end that there's quite a bit of anxiety in the world of work right now. And one of the things that we're seeing that we're not overly happy with is people getting uncertain about their role and, will my role exist in the future? Will AI disrupt my role? And thinking, well, is there another role that's maybe more future-proof than the one that I have today? And that can lead to some individuals jumping ship early because they're a little bit nervous about their situation. And that's then on us. So how do we look after employees and how they think about their roles, the organizations that they work for? So a real challenge for us as HR leaders to bring more transparency into our businesses so people can see that, yes, shift is happening, significant shift is happening. But we want to be open about that, and we want to show the future opportunities as well as the fact that certain roles may become obsolete, and that's okay. And this is where having a skills-first approach really works, where individuals can see what skills have I got today, where would I like to develop next, and then what does that mean for roles that may come open to me as well. So we see that 84% of the top employers in the program are actually transparent about organizational shifts today already. And then we look at the business outcomes measures there as well. We also see that if you have low churn in an organization, you're actually 7% more likely to have this policy in place. So if it's not something that you've got in your business right now, if certain things are happening a bit behind closed doors, open up about it. It's a great retention mechanism. Now onto the third point here as well. So this is about integrating skills data, if you like, into your organization. And there's a very nice impact here on productivity, as you see on the slide. And productivity is a bit of a dark art. If you look to our news headlines, it's almost as if economists around the world talk about productivity as a bit like alchemy. We're not quite sure how to unlock it. I was looking recently at some data. It said that in France, there's 17% higher productivity than in the UK. But what does that mean? What is it that France is really doing that, say, the UK is not yet doing? It's a difficult area. But some research has been done here linking skills to productivity increases. And when we look into our own research as well, we also see engagement bumps as well. And this was, I think Vanessa explained this really nicely when talking about mobility in the organization within Accenture, and people who were able to see, again, the skills they've got today, what's required for the future, and perhaps thinking, well, I never considered a role in this part of the organization or that part of the organization because I was on a more traditional career trajectory, but maybe I've got 80% skills coverage and it's quite an easy development jump to move into something that's really quite exciting and new. And that's the kind of thing that fuels, of course, engagement and loyalty within organizations. So a quick summary then, what have we learned? We've learned 6.5 trillion is a very large number and a very large opportunity, I think, for us as HR leaders. We looked at how a skills-first approach can really drive growth for an organization. We looked at how transparency is key for retention. I think actually as business leaders, we've known that for a long, long time, but it's good to see that confirmed in the data as well. And then also how we integrate skills data to actually boost productivity and engagement there as well. Now, as mentioned shortly, we'll share the full findings behind the report as well, which has some more examples from other top employers who are getting it right when it comes to skills first as well. But now we'd love to involve you as our audience, and we're going to bring Vanessa back in as well to have a look at some of the questions that we've had in so far. So there's a list here. So if I just pick the first one on the list. So how do you use the knowledge of new colleagues from the baby boomer generation? They often bring a broad business portfolio, as well as a good education and practical experience in transformation, digitalization, AI, etc. So it's a multi-generations in the workplace question. This is definitely a good one for Accenture with a workforce the size of yours, Vanessa. How do you think about this one?
That is a very interesting question. Thanks, Adrian. You give me the difficult one. I think we said we're going to give you the difficult ones. But yes, so from an HR perspective, we see colleagues across different generations, from the baby boomers, and every other type of generation as well. So my response to that question, Adrian, is that every generation, their feedback is really invaluable. They bring a diverse mindset. They bring a wealth of business knowledge, very strong educational knowledge, backgrounds, practical experience. I often speak to many baby boomers, and they have a very different transformational mindset. They very much into things like AI, digitization. So in terms of going back to the question, baby boomers, how do we use them? In a very skills based organization, we make sure that all of these capabilities are captured, it's shared, and it's put to good use. So we're very fortunate that we have different diverse projects. I mentioned the capabilities and the service offerings that we have at Accenture, from consulting to strategy to technology. So often through mentoring and cross generational collaboration with the baby boomers and the Gen Zs and every part of the organization. I think it's important that everyone brings a dynamic, um, unique skill set that is valuable for any organization to thrive. We don't just recruit based on age. I must be very, very open and blunt about that. We have um, graduates that are joining from straight out of university, and that is the traditional Accenture model. Is we hire graduates straight out of university. We are a consulting based organization. It's a progressive model, and where we see expertise that really transform um, in terms of their career as well as their capabilities. And often experienced professionals are the ones who bring both the technical know-how and the wisdom to guide others. So yes, I love your question around the baby boomer generation, but again, we also, as much as we bring in the young talent, the more stronger older generation is more important for us as well, because they have the strong institutional knowledge. So we have a mixed bag, and everyone has a diverse role to play.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, it's something that we see play out across different top employers as well. There's two dynamics to this, I guess. One is on the skills side of things. Definitely skills helps in a multi-generational workforce. Having that kind of skill taxonomy is a way of talking about each other's skills and capabilities, no matter what your generation. So it kind of levels the playing field is one thing. And at the same time, then there's obviously other things that top employers are focusing on, whether it's family-friendly benefits for certain stages of life, whether it's focus on health, or we have enough top employers who change the way that pay is delivered later on in life as well, to help people out of the organization there as well. And thinking about, we did a study on Gen Z just recently as well, and actually the number one thing that Gen Z in the study, I think there was 1,700 interviews took place with that one, was just saying that actually it wasn't so much pay being the top thing, it was flexibility in the workplace as being the top thing. So I think we can at least see that skills is something that really helps us across the generations here. So thank you for the question. Let's dive into a next question. Eve, what question have you selected for us next? I think the second one I can see here is back to you, Vanessa, which is, at what stage during that journey towards becoming skills first did you feel that, hey, this is going to work? Was there just one particular action that really moved the needle to say, yep, we're on the right track, we're winning here?
Yes, I think that's a very, very good question. I think it was the business needs. When we work in terms of upskilling our people, the way we hire, the way we retain, we often plan around what's coming in the future. So we have a pipeline of opportunities that we understand. Based on that pipeline, what are the type of skills that we need for now, in the upcoming future, which is, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but also for the future. So our planning and the forecast of our demand management is very, very sophisticated and very strong around the way we deploy and retain our people. So we have basically a supply and demand that works well for us. So the question around when did we know? We already knew because we knew it was a gap for us. We knew when we weren't able to staff opportunities based on not having the right and the relevant skills at the right time. And it's so important to have the right skills at the right time because you don't, as I said in my presentation, you don't want to get left behind. You don't want to have organizations that are leaving you ahead of the curve, and you don't have the right skills to staff certain projects. And for that reason, you are basically losing revenue or not generating revenue because you don't have the right skills. So when did we knew? We already knew. The big question for us, Adrian, is what do we do about it? And that is why this whole transformation around becoming a skills-based organization really resonated with us. We knew it was a gap. We needed to find a way in which we identify what needs to happen, the skills that we have now, the skills that we need for the future, and the aspirational skills that is required in terms of where the market is going.
Perfect. Thanks, Vanessa. We've got a tech question now, which is a good one to address to a tech company. But question from the audience here: what AI-powered platform have you used to assess skills and get visibility of what you've got in the organization?
So again, we were very lucky that we didn't have to go out to market to buy a technology or a platform that would allow us to manage our skills. We have a in-house based platform. We manage our skills. It's called our skills engine. That's quite, that's quite relevant if you think about it. And that skills engine is available to all our people. It is integrated on Workday, and every individual, it is their responsibility to make sure that their skills is updated accordingly. So, for example, if they complete a specific certification, if they are going on a specific training, if they require a specific training, that model is able to do exactly that. Look at the skills that we have, identify skills and the gaps that we need to close, and also aspirational skills as well. So, lucky enough, because we knew exactly what we needed to do, we built on existing systems, we integrated that into our Workday platform, and it is working exceptionally well.
That's great. Thanks so much. And I think we've got time for one last question. We promised 45 minutes on this one, so a couple of minutes left. I like this one because it's a future-focused question. So how do you keep that skills inventory up to date? You did say it's critical to keep it up to date. How do you do that? Do you use any skills assessment tool for employees to keep that knowledge current?
We do. So I did speak about the skills engine. So, we don't really struggle with the skills and the technology because that's there. What we do struggle with, and I spoke about it earlier around behavior, it's a culture shift of making sure that people are doing the right thing. Oftentimes, if people are not measured around what the requirement is, they're not going to necessarily do that. So, for us at Accenture, we make it a priority for each and every person to have their skills updated and make sure that they are trained in the relevant role that they are positioned in the firm, as well as the service area that they are in, as well as the level that they are in. So the question is, how do we make this measurable? We make this measurable by setting a priority on Workday as well. And this priority is measured. So, as an example, I take myself, I'm in HR, I will set myself a priority around learning. I will say at the end of November, I would like to complete this data and AI for HR, and I make the reviewer my business leader. At the end of that business reviewer will have to then give feedback on that priority, on that learning priority that I've captured. So I am accountable for my career as the individual in the firm, but also the priority reviewer or the manager that is responsible for the person that they are managing. So that reviewer will then give feedback to say, Vanessa actually didn't do the training that she set out to do in November, so I will get marked down. That then gets inputted into the performance in terms of how am I evaluated in the year. So everything is measurable, everything is tracked, and we have algorithms to do that for us. So the
Yeah.
algorithms validates those priorities for us as well.
Wonderful. Sounds like a finely orchestrated system. Thank you again for sharing. We're coming to the end of today's LinkedIn live session anyway. We haven't managed to get through all of your questions, I'm afraid. My apologies for that. If you'd like to connect with Vanessa or myself, I'm Vanessa. I'm sure we can find you on LinkedIn, can't we, for any follow-up questions on that front. I'm just volunteering you now. But otherwise, I will go through the rest of the questions as well to see if we can come back to you with any answers that we have on those ones. So thank you so much for joining, and thanks so much for the questions. We do have a couple of QR codes for you as well. So we enjoy doing these sessions. We're also in a continuous learning environment, like Vanessa's learning in Accenture. The first thing we'd like to know is how you found the session as well. That will help us improve further sessions as well. So that's the QR code that you see up on your screen right now. And then the second one, of course, is the deep dive into the topic, which is the full report from the Top Employers Research Team, Building a Skills-First Workforce. That is that QR code that's up there as well. Both of those links will go into the comments. So if you weren't fast enough with your phones to grab those QR codes, we'll put those links into the comments and you can grab them in your own time. Thanks in advance for your feedback on that one. We will also share an email with you all tomorrow. There'll be a recording of the session. So if it was useful, if you wanted to revisit any moments or share with colleagues, please do. And finally, Vanessa, once again, a huge thank you for your openness. Thanks for all the great work Accenture's doing as well, and sharing that with the Top Employers community and the broader HR community as well. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Adrian.
Wonderful. Right. With that, we're going to close the call. I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful day ahead, and we look forward to seeing you for more conversations as we continue to build a better world of work together. Thank you so much for joining.